right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dharma Digs podcast in pursuit of purposeful living. I'm your host, Taylor Winchester, and as always, I am extremely grateful you've decided to stop by, take some time out of your day, listen to this podcast. So yeah, thank you for being here. Today's episode, another solo dig, as most of you have become well aware every other week. That's what I do. We dig into some concepts that I'm pondering and contemplating in my efforts to become more in tune with my inner being and my inner soul, and really just a pursuit of purpose within my own life. And last week's conversation that I released was with Travis Shallow. Shout out to him. That was a fun conversation, and thanks to all you folks maybe that tuned in for the first time that are fans of Travis. And as a reminder, you can catch some of his live streams weekly on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. I'm excited for the next couple of episodes that are conversations. Next week is going to be a conversation with Jason Jett, who is a songwriter producer here in Charlotte, North Carolina. He actually just recently opened up Grindhouse Studios, and can't wait to share that one with you. And then in a couple of weeks, I guess actually it's a few weeks out now, I have a conversation with David Lee. David Lee is a buddy that I've met here in Charlotte as well, and he's just doing some really cool things around the scene. He's a producer and songwriter and all of those things as well, but he's brought to light some push for more equity within the music ecosystem here in Charlotte, and he's doing great work along with some other folks there at the I'm gonna blank on. Oh, Fair Play Charlotte. Yep, Fair Play Charlotte. So, but yeah, I'll share all that stuff with you in a few weeks, so stay tuned for that. As always, as a part of the intro, I love to shout out Leonardo Solis, who is and was so kind to let me use his tunes for this Dharma Digs podcast. So thanks, Leo. Hope you're doing well, buddy. All right, today's solo dig is going to expand a little bit on the conversation or the topic of conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago, which was who am I, and how do we start to kind of peel back the layers within our own selves to truly discover that inner soul, that inner spirit within. And I've been meditating on that continuously, but also have kind of taken me in this other path of the thought patterns that we have, and how do we begin to look at ways to kind of change those thought patterns. And really, what is that once we figure out who we are internally and kind of what those deepest core desires are for our soul, how do we then maybe reboot that software to kind of better serve us as beings, and not only better serve us and transform us internally and as humans, but also help transform the world around us and those people around us. So today's episode is going to be talking about that software of the soul, as they talk about it. And if you do some research or Googling that, you'll see Deepak Chopra talks a lot about it, and that's some of the coursework I've been digging into talks about that as well. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. And so this software of the soul, let's start with talking about maybe how we are all interconnected. And Albert Einstein had this unified or field of unified theory, and it was really most of it is way over my head. This quantum physics stuff is above my pay grade when it comes to really fully understanding all of that, and I haven't spent enough time on it. But basically what it's saying, that at least what I've gathered and kind of gleaned from it, is that we're all related. We're all interconnected in many ways, but ultimately in this unified theory of energy and electromagnetism and all these things. So if you look at it that way, then maybe when we look back at the conversation around who am I, it's easy to maybe say, well, if we're all connected, then what makes us different? And I think that there are a few different answers to that. And within the Vedic philosophy and wisdom that I've been learning from recently and studying, there's a couple of things that we can hone in on to determine what really creates that uniqueness about us, and what is our own each individual software within our souls that helps kind of dictate what that uniqueness is. And so in the according to Vedic philosophy, every action that you perform creates a memory, and every memory creates a desire, and it's the desire that then moves us into the next action. So that is kind of what is referred to as the software of the soul. So if you think about it like when we're talking software, think about it like a computer program. It's programming your own actions. Your actions happen based on your memories and desires. So let me kind of go back to that. In the Sanskrit terms from this Vedic philosophy, karma, which I'm sure you've heard talked about in many different ways, the whole, oh man, that's just his karma. Well, karma is really the action component in this trilogy of things. So when you take an action, typically then what happens is a memory forms from that from that action. So in the Sanskrit term for memory is samskara. Samskara. I always stumble over these pronunciations, but I'm working on them, so bear with me here. But so you have karma, the action, then you have the samskara, the memory, and then you have vasana, desires. So it's a loop that we create based on the actions we take. And I think this changes throughout our lives. Obviously, as we grow older, we take different actions based on the circumstances around us. But really, it's just this almost like thinking about it as a musician, you get this feedback loop of, well, I did this action. It created maybe subconsciously this memory that had this desire tied to it based on the memory. So a very simple example of that is you go to your favorite local coffee shop. We'll say Smelly Cat for the folks that are Charlotte fans here in Noda. You go to Smelly Cat, you get that coffee that you love in the morning, and that creates a memory of, especially on a nice cold day, which as I'm recording this, it feels like spring outside, and I'm grateful for that. But think about a nice cool day, you get that warm, delicious coffee in the morning. That creates a memory of that coffee, which then in turn rolls into a desire and every morning potentially to go back and get that same coffee again. So that's where the action comes in. The next morning you go back and get that coffee. So very simplistic way of trying to roll this out to you. But again, you have the action that turns into a memory that then creates a desire that leads back into another action. Okay, so hopefully you've got that. So the problem with this is that it creates limited possibilities. And that's where we want to talk about, when we talk about meditation, we talk about quieting the mind, going inside, determining and finding out internally really who we are as individuals and who you are, what those deepest desires are. The only way to break that pattern is to find a position of infinite possibilities instead of limited possibilities, is to break that cycle. So there's a lot of ways you can look at this, and today I'll give you an example, or maybe more of an exercise that we worked on a few weeks ago in our course. And basically, it's a 3-step process that anybody can use. In addition, obviously, meditation helps with that for sure. I can attest to that, just having a daily practice to just slow everything down, quiet the mind down, and kind of detach from those stories that we create. That could be career. For me, this week has been really, really busy with new concert announcements, which is awesome. So happy to be making those socially distanced concert announcements, especially under the times. It's been a really long time. So, but on a daily practice, what meditation does for me is allows me to separate myself from those and kind of detach from that. And that's a lot of what the Buddhist philosophy talks about is that non-attachment and non-attainment. And by moving in that direction, you can break the cycle by becoming more aware. This tricycle thing that I'm talking about here. So, all right. So in addition to meditation, what we could then look to do is really become more aware in the present moment. And this is a 3-step process that anybody can use anytime during the day. It doesn't matter what you're really applying this to. But step 1 is to become the witness of the choices you make in every moment. Okay, so when we talked about in my meditation last week, we meditated on the who am I question. And a lot of what we talk about there is the act of kind of separating yourself from your thoughts and your breath, and realizing that you are not defined by those things. So in step one, if you can become a witness of the choices you make in every moment, the act of witnessing those choices will bring you the whole decision-making process from the unconscious realm into the conscious realm. And what do I mean by that? To slow it down a little bit. So it's very easy when let's say you drive to work, and a lot of people aren't driving to work right now because we're working remote. But I used to do this to try and just bring more awareness into my daily practice. When I was driving to work, what I noticed is I would take the same exact route every day. And over time, maybe you don't pay close attention to this, but what ends up happening is you kind of zone out on that drive because it's the same right turn, the same left turn. It's just habit. It's that same action that you take every day. So in order to become more aware and present in that daily drive, I decided to mix it up. And every day of the week, I would switch. Obviously, there are only so many ways you can get to a certain location from destination A to destination B, or point A to point B. And so just taking a different route would make me become more aware and present, and be consciously taking a different route and thinking about that as I was doing it. So trying to witness the decisions that you're making, witnessing the choices that you make in any moment, that will allow you to really start to make those choices and make those decisions within more of a conscious atmosphere and a conscious realm. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is when you make that choice, whatever it is, ask yourself these two questions. First question, what are the consequences of the choice that I'm making? What are the consequences? So what's the outcome, or what's the consequence of me making that choice? And question two is, will this choice bring happiness and fulfillment to me, as well as to those that may be affected by it? And that could be your family, your peers, your coworkers, whatever. It depends on obviously the situation. So if you can more consciously make the choice, or make the decision, or select whatever your choice is in any scenario, then you're going to be more present and aware in that moment. Okay. So again, step one is witnessing the choices that you make every day. You have to become aware and conscious of those decisions. Step two, asking yourself, what are the consequences to you as an individual, and what are the consequences to those around you? How might that affect those around you, that choice? All right. And step three is tune into your body's inner wisdom. And this is, again, what I talk about in some of the meditations. When we go internal and peel back the layers to really, who am I? And a lot of times we'll consciously focus on our heart center, or, maybe that feeling at the solar plexus area in your gut. This is something you can bring into your day to day. When you are witnessing those decisions and you're consciously thinking about what the outcome of those decisions may be, then you can tune into your body's inner wisdom to determine, how does that make you feel? As you're considering the choice, before you pay attention to the sensations in your body, the feelings of comfort or discomfort, those can be the guide. They can be the beacon that we talk about as that inner wisdom, that inner light. That's what it's there for. So, one thing they talk about is the gut feeling. What's your instinct? What's your gut say? And those are really that's your inner wisdom, your inner guidance, the true sense of self. That is your beacon to help you become aware of those decisions. So as you put your attention there, ask your body, how do you feel about this choice? If it's a feeling of comfort and ease, and that gut instinct says you're right, and that's the decision to make, then most likely that's the decision you want to follow. If you're feeling uncomfortable, discomfort, unease, maybe a little anxiety, then obviously that's pointing you in a direction that maybe you shouldn't be making the decision you're considering making. So to just refresh those, you can, at any time, any decision, any point within your day-to-day life, apply this three-step process to really become more self-aware, more aware of your surroundings, more aware of the decisions you're making, which will then ultimately, what that's going to do is that's going to reprogram that software within your soul. And in reprogramming and trying to find a new connection or find a new path, what's going to happen is you're going to become more conscious of your own awareness. And that is an amazing, amazing feeling, because along with that consciousness for me anyways, I can say, hey, from experience, along with that consciousness comes a sense of gratitude, a sense of peace, a sense of purpose within all of this crazy shit that's happening around us. And that's not always an easy thing to say, because the world is a crazy place, and this physical realm, there's a lot of things happening that can really be overwhelming and put us in a sense of anxiety and anxiousness and uncertainty. But if we can quiet down all of those things internally to remember who we truly are, how the decisions we're making will impact not only ourselves, but could potentially impact those around us, we're going to be more conscious, more mindful, and more intentional in the decisions we make. So hopefully you can find some value in this kind of 3-step process integrated into your day-to-day. Maybe find a few minutes a day to meditate, stop, take a few deep breaths, and then readjust so that the next action you take is a conscious action, which will then result in a memory, or a memory with that consequence that comes from that conscious action, that then creates a desire to maybe repeat that process and become more conscious in all of those decisions you're making and all of those choices you have to decide upon, because there's choices in I don't even know how to quantify how many choices we have to make in a day, but if you think about the 6,000 to 8,000 thoughts on average that we have as humans, I would venture to guess that a high percentage of those are thoughts about a decision that we either need to make or have to make or have recently made. So again, let's reprogram that software within each of our own souls to become more aware, become more intentional, and become more conscious about the decisions we're making. And I think that you'll find a good bit of value out of that in your day-to-day, and you'll start to feel just a little bit more inner peace. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you about this in more detail. I'd love to schedule maybe some one-on-one time and chat, or of course, I've really been kicking around this idea of opening up some group sessions. I don't know if anybody's interested in this or not, but maybe I'll ask that question on my social media. But if you'd be into kind of a group conversation around these topics and digging a little bit deeper, I would love to explore those conversations with more people. So yeah, feel free anytime to reach out and hit me up. You can find my website, you can find my social media, all that stuff. If you're listening, you know where to find me. But thank you as always for tuning in. Again, another short solo dig today. So I hope you find a little bit of value. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you sharing this space with me. And I can't begin to tell you enough how gratifying it is for me to be able to get some of these contemplative things that go on in my head and within my own practice out there into the world, and to hear from some of you the impact that it's having and the appreciation that you have from listening is it is definitely a little bit of fuel to the fire to keep me going. So if you want to dig in a little bit more, you want to chat about any of this stuff, please reach out. And I'd love a few reviews, whether that's to me personally, you give me some feedback on what you're thinking, or if you want to drop a review on Apple or whatever podcast platform you're listening on, that is always appreciated as well. So thanks for being here, guys. Stay tuned next week. Again, I've got Jason Jett, conversation with Jason Jett coming out. And yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up. Otherwise, you have a lovely, lovely day. I'm sending love and light out to all of you. And namaste. Thank you for being here.